Tune in as I laugh with my sister in love and we unlock our leadership superpowers to make a lasting impact in this world. Get ready for an empowering journey of growth, laughter, and transformation.
Hey, and welcome to Tawana Talks. And today I am absolutely thrilled to welcome a very special family member to the show today. Having had the incredible privilege of seeing her grow and flourish from a spirited-eyed little young 8-year-old to a phenomenal woman, mom, wife, leader, boss she is now. I couldn't be more prouder than having my sister in love join us today, Tiara Whitus, and I am just so excited to have you here. But let me tell you a little bit about Tiara. She is truly a force to be reckoned with. She is a devoted wife to a very supportive husband. She's a mom to 4 amazing, brilliant children, and a leader who is making waves in the 911 emergency communication and emergency management services. She's not just about that title. She's on a mission to champion inclusive leadership and boost employee morale through thoughtful development. And as if that is not enough, she is also sharpening her skills and knowledge as a PhD student in organizational development and change. So I want the audience to give a warm welcome. If you're listening, you should be clapping in your car and stumping your feet as I get a chance to dive into the journey of her insights and how she is actually shaping her future in her leadership roles, one step at a time, none other than Tiara, who I and all family members and friends call Mook. Welcome, Mook, to the show. Tell us something. What do you have to say?
Yeah, so first of all, that was an awesome introduction. I really do love that you led with wife and mom, right? Because outside of everything that I've done, when anyone says, like what defines success for you, it always starts there. Um, and that's the hardest too. Like we talk about leading out work and school and that, but that marriage and parenting thing, that is what literally has taught me so much about leadership here. It's something about, and I don't want to just jump deep in there, but it's just something about getting feedback, especially, I have teens, right? So getting the feedback from them will have you looking at yourself so differently, like, okay, because you really care about them and you love them. And so someone at work can give you some feedback and you can just brush it off. But when they say something, it's like, oh, okay, clutch my pearls. Like, let me do some looking. So yeah, it definitely all starts there. So I love that you led the introduction with that.
No, I think that that is personal to me, and you know that as far as when it comes to parenting and being a wife and being a mom and things like that, it does for me start there. Like I said, and many other occasions, like my first two, your oldest niece and nephew, they made me who I am because they made me mom. They made me the leader. I feel like a leader is anybody because you have to lead yourself, but they made me the leader of others. But this 9-year-old, your youngest niece, she shows me who I am every single day. So she is writing the description daily, like that ain't it. That is it. And so it, like you said, your children and your spouse or significant other are the people who kind of show you. But you also mentioned how these are most difficult roles because when you take on a job, they give you a description. They tell you what you have to do. And even if you're building the description, the job, you get to build it. But as a parent,
it's fluid.
A book does not come with, I used to tell people like when this child was born, a book didn't come after they cut the umbilical cord. It was like, oh yeah, and by the way, here's the manual. They didn't even tell you how to put the car seat in the car. You had to figure that out before you got to take the baby home. And then they were like, you good? I'm like, am I?
You got that? You're good. Yeah. And
Like,
it's funny for me too, because like you have a big age difference, right? So it makes sense when you deal with like some different things to be like, whoa, I didn't. But mine are all 2 years apart. And I'm still like, these are 4 completely different people who have completely different needs. And to me, sometimes that's crazy. Like, how do y'all all look just alike, but then like literally the similarities in there?
But you got to even take the intricacies of that because not only do you have different individual beings that you are the leader of, like you made them and you're the leader of, but then today is not the same as tomorrow. So everything you like, all right, I mastered today.
I
I did
got
all
this.
the
Yeah.
things today. Everything was good. And then you get to tomorrow and you try to do the same thing you did today, yesterday, and
It's not
today.
going
And they like, no. You're like, oh, it's a different,
it's
I
different.
gotta rewrite it.
Yes. Yes. And we won't even get into all the differences of things that I never even had to consider with like gender identity and all those things where I'm like, I don't even know what to call you
Yeah.
today. Like,
Or and social media and
uh,
all of that aspect. So I want to jump into something that we were kind of discussing prior to even pressing record, because we were laughing about it, and I think that it has so much substance that others can see themselves in it. So I mentioned that with the first two, people were like, "Oh my God, you're such a good mom. You should write a book." And that is no way patting myself on the back, but I think I did a pretty good job with them. But and now with my 9-year-old, like I think I'm doing a pretty good job with her, but I really am looking for that book that I should have
yeah.
written, because I'm like I need to remember some things here.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then you mentioned too how, as a child, or a growing young adult teenager, you hung out with some friends and there was a young lady who had some children as well. Talk to me a little bit about that conversation that we had, because I want to jump into that.
Yeah, absolutely. So there was a huge family and I love them so much and I love their dynamic. And so I would always say like, oh, I'm gonna have, this many kids. Like I'll say it because I love her and I'll probably send this to her anyway. But Miss Marie and I've been really intentional in the past couple of years of my life of giving people their flowers, right? And so I reached out to her recently. Last time we went back to Buffalo, I actually went and visited her and took the kids to see her, and it was really beautiful.
Oh,
But when I had the kids, because I did start so young, I had my baby at 22. So I was 22 with 4 children, which sounds crazy now. But I think about it. But she would always say, like you are doing things differently. Like you are doing a great job. You are, we talk about breaking generational curses and things of that
mm-hmm.
nature. And she would always tell me, like, you need to write a book. Like you need to really sit down and think about, what you're doing and get it documented. And I was like, no, that sounds crazy. I can't write a book. Like I started a blog for a little while, and then she really was like, okay, now you can write these ideas down,
Mm-hmm.
like really, really do this. But again, when you are in the midst of it, right? I had these 4 babies. I'm 22. I'm in school full time. I'm working full time. Making sure my marriage is good and staying intact. Like you just sometimes you feel like something has to be perfect for you to
Right,
do it.
right, right,
And,
right.
and I really think that that's what stopped me. But for sure, now when I look back, I'm like, dang, I should have.
Better wrote
I
that book.
should have. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Talk a little bit about, like, okay, I remember when you were doing the blog.
Hmm.
And then you mentioned that Mel, your husband, he kind of
Hmm.
didn't want you to do it. And then now transitioning, now that the children are older, talk about that shift of why he didn't want it. And now the
Hmm.
shift of, oh wait, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. So um, we'll just start with just differences, right? So Jamel was raised Jehovah's Witness, which is completely different from, my ratchet upbringing. So we just had like in the beginning, some things we just were on opposite ends of the spectrum of how we felt about things.
Mm-hmm.
And privacy was one of those things. Our family is very outspoken, no secrets, we're gonna bring it to the table, we're gonna clear this right now. Their family is very different, very reserved, and we're not putting things out in the open. And so when I was doing the blog, for him, it was just too much. It was too much of our specific family dynamic that was on view for the world. And he was just uncomfortable with it. And so I did stop because I have to be respectful of his feelings, just like they're my
Yeah.
children, they're his children too. And so but yeah, recently, like we look at different things like, families on social media and how as animated and wild and fun and silly as our kids are still, but even more than like, man, we would probably be multimillionaires if we if we had started documenting it then. But outside of that, even just to have documentation of the journey,
Yeah.
even to have, guidance for families that are going through the same thing, because it's cool, we talk about representation,
Mm-hmm.
right? You can pick up a parenting book but it's going to be from how to parent from that view over there.
Right.
It's not going to be how do you start as a teenage mom, get married after all your kids are born, and then figure it out and get it together from there, because that's not the normal journey.
Right.
And so how awesome would it have been had we documented it then? I think we could still do it now, but I think the true essence of the feeling of being in that moment, we could probably never recreate.
Yeah, no, I hear that. And I want to hit on what you said. Like sometimes we just don't do things, not anything, but we don't do things because it's not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And so for listeners who are hearing this, I want to encourage that if you have a thought or a process that you are thinking about doing it while you're in it, because like you mentioned, capturing the true essence, that's when the true essence comes, when you're in it, when you're doing it, and not thinking that, well, I can't do this because I'm not perfect or I don't have it all figured out. You have figured out what you figured out right now, and share that. Because the people who it's going to resonate with and people that's going to impact that have it are the people who have not gotten there just yet. And so you're just really writing the step that you just took, because the person who is 2 steps behind is going to need that. And then you're taking the step that you just took, and then you stop. You can stop where you are and then pick it up from where you are to keep going for the next and the next. And so I think that even in your journey now, as being a mom of, 4 teenagers, one, and I say 3 teenagers because Mikey is just about an adult, like he's at that cusp of it's about to be. So now you about to be an adult parent. Welcome to the adult parent club.
Well, we got Jay 22.
Oh, dang it. So I don't know why I'm thinking Mikey's older than, no, you already an adult. Welcome. Congratulations.
But there's something to be said about the beauty of the full circle. Right?
I agree.
That full circle, when they like, remember that time, man, you were right. Like I see it. I see it now. There's beauty in that.
Listen, that I know with Tashani being almost 30, right? And when she's able to come back and say, I am so glad you never let me cut my hair like that. Like I was crying and I was mad. I'm so glad you didn't let me wear those pants, or you didn't let me, because she would come with like a presentation of why I need to let her. Like she had a PowerPoint, because this when PowerPoints and not Canva wasn't. She had a PowerPoint slide presentation of why she needed to get snake eyes. Those the little, earrings in your. And she had a PowerPoint, all of the things. She had a presentation on why she needed social media, because at the time she was younger and wasn't doing no Facebook. And she had a presentation. And now when she's able to come back to me as an adult and say, I'm so glad that you didn't let me do that.
I think Jay and I are closer than we've been in a long time. Like obviously that he was like, my shadow. That's my bonus baby for all the listeners. I got him when he was 4, and he was my second hip. And then, we went through that teenage phase where, you're not my mama. And now and now it has really come full circle where he's just been able to speak to me freely, which I've always been really open, I think, with the kids. But I do still have my generic Black mama moments, but but really now we can have those conversations and it not be about blame or about any of that, just really talking to understand. And it's been beautiful.
I love that you said talking to understand. And you talked about a couple of things that kind of lends itself to some of the dynamic. Like you mentioned, Mel, the way that he was raised and that way he was brought up, the way that your family was brought up, and the whole dynamic shift and being different. And growing up in one way, and all of the intricacies, the nuances, the great things, even when we look back and say, that was pretty messed up, but I'm able to do this because of that. And so I like you to like just kind of dive into like you parent and raise and live totally different than what you were parented, raised, and lived as a child, but you still bring in the things that you've learned from mommy, from grandma, that you've learned in those things. Like, how were you able to kind of filter, all right, these are the things that are going to be, helpful in my leadership as a mom, and my leadership as a companion to my husband, and my leadership at work. But then these are the things that I'm going to just kind of let stay in the sister.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a multifaceted question. So I will start with, I think that's one of the positives of me having my children so young. Right? Because those feelings that I had as a child being raised that way were still so raw. And in some experience, some things still happening, right? Because when I had Mikey, I still lived at home.
Right.
So some things I was still dealing with that I knew that I didn't want to repeat. Funny thing is, Jamel showed me something that I don't think that I was conscious of. And one thing was how much of an example you were in our parenting.
Oh, me? Oh, I'm like, when you say you, I'm like, I thought you would say you.
No, seriously. So I remember, so not only did I become a parent very young, I became an auntie very young, right?
Right.
Shani was born, I was only 10. When Rye was born, I was 13. So I had a really like a front seat to them being raised, because you guys were also raising me.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, right? So I remember we had a conversation one time when Rye was little, and I said something about him doing something like he was being bad or something, and you were like, well, let's talk about that. Like, why? And the lesson I got from that was children need to explore to learn, right? And that we're so quick to say, oh, they're bad or they're doing this, but are we really paying attention to what we're stifling when we try to control that behavior?
Yeah.
So that was something I learned directly from you that changed how I raised my babies.
Gotcha.
Yeah, let them climb, let them do this. Like that, that's how they learn.
Yeah.
And it's funny because people always comment on how much our kids are alike in their insightfulness, in their ability to express themselves, because children today cannot speak. Like, and because we allowed them to. Because I didn't say shut up when I'm talking to you, because I didn't tell me how you feel, because number one, I need to know, and number two, I need to make sure you can.
Right. I agree. And I think, and you even just said something where in the earlier, I don't know if we were recording or not, but you said, I was telling you how Tyla is like, when I was dancing, and she's like, I'm like, I move a lot with my hands. She's like, oh, it's not the hands, it's your body. And you, how you said, Mikey was like, I need that. And them being, Mikey's 19 or 18?
19.
Right. She's 9. Them being 10 years apart and not growing up in the same house, not even in the same city, and still having those same mannerisms, is a testament, not just a bloodline, but also a testament to how
Jemiah and Darius is the whole same person.
Right.
From the list to the, like, literally the same person. Love for lizards. They both had the same pet. We didn't even know. Like, they both had the bearded dragons.
Yeah.
Like, Maya's is 4 now. So yeah, like, there's something to that. Like, yes, genetics are strong for sure. But also just the fact that we gave them the grace to grow up.
Yeah. I agree.
Jamel and I were laughing, like, people used to always say especially to me, you think you've grown. But on the other side of that, look how many adult situations I was put in.
Right.
No, I don't think I'm grown. Y'all think I'm grown.
Y'all think I'm grown. I'm just doing what y'all is giving me to do. But when you're talking to me, now you want me to be a kid. But when you need me to do this, I got to be grown up.
You want to be grown. Okay.
So that goes to, like, one of in season 1, I had an episode that was called in order to teach them, you have to treat them. And that talked about, are we providing space and are we providing the right environment for children to learn? Are we looking at who they are, what they need before we tell them what they need? And so how have like your personal and professional experiences like shaped how you are creating learning and leading, how you're creating learning for your children and leading for your staff?
Yeah.
And learning, because it's a companionship with your husband. Like you guys are leading and learning together, each other
Together.
and your children.
Yeah. So I think I'll start with Mel, because that was something else I had to learn on the fly, right? Was what a healthy relationship looks like,
Oh
and
yeah.
what we wanted ours to look like. You know, we come from a family of very strong, independent women.
Right.
And what I had to realize was that some of those strengths that were beautiful in them was making me a bad wife.
Mm.
Because you can't be an independent companion. That's not it's not how that works.
Kind of oxymoron. I'm independent
You
companion.
know,
We together, but I'm by myself.
yeah, when you say it, it sounds obvious.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
how I was behaving, you know, whether I put a word with it or not. And it was making it hard for him to be a husband,
Mm.
right? Because I mean, I have a strong personality and
You was
and that
strong.
kid, strong.
Is.
So I had to learn and am still learning
Mm-hmm.
how to use my strength to shut up. Like, you know, sometimes,
No, I
sometimes,
hear that. Yeah.
yeah, sometimes your strength isn't in, oh, I can do this, I can do, your strength is in not doing
Mm-hmm.
and shutting up. One space where that is sometimes hard for me is with our sons. Um, it's that mommy boy thing. It is true.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel
Yeah.
so protective of all the kids, but I think it shows up more than because dads know that they have to be a little harder on them. Right. And so for me, that was a big part of our companionship that I had to get out of the way of.
Mm.
And there
Mm.
are
How much of
times,
that is trust as well, right?
oh, yeah, so much. So it's funny. I'm going to say this name, and I do not believe in everything he says, but there was one thing Steve Harvey said to somebody on his show one day where they do the little ask Steve Harvey this. And the mom had a very similar issue. And he said, do you like the man that your husband is?
Ooh, that's
And
strong.
she said, yeah. He said, then let him do what he need to do to make your boys into that. And I was like, oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that's powerful. That
Yeah,
gave me
yeah,
chills.
yeah. And I was like, oh, like, yeah. And now I do. As much as I want to interject or this, no, I just gotta shut up. Even if that means I gotta leave the room, because you know sometimes me and shutting up, that's not the
No,
so even if
I
I
think that's so powerful too. Just going back to that, like in situations like if you're being combative in parenting, and if you think about it, if you look at that question and say, "Do you like the man that your husband is?" And maybe sometimes the reason why you're having such a struggle because you don't like
yeah,
that person, and so you
that
like,
might
"Oh
be
wait, it ain't that. It's not the parenting. It's I don't even like who I'm with. That's why I'm trying to stop that from." So
trying
then
to
you got to
stop
step
it
back
from
and do some other stuff,
recreating. See, and that it wasn't that for me. So I
right?
really, literally, it was just I had to fight nature.
Yeah.
I had to fight nature of me just being a mama bear. You know, we love to say my baby, my baby, my baby. But I mean, you know, Mel is a very active parent. It was never like we never use those words like, hey, can you babysit? Like, no, those are
Right.
your
No,
like
your kids.
he changed diapers just like I did. He woke up for night, like you know what I mean? So no, it wasn't that. It was literally just number one, I'm a control freak and I can acknowledge that about myself. So there
I
was
can't acknowledge that at all. I'm not gonna say anything. I'm not gonna.
you're just gonna just you just acknowledged it,
I'm
whether
just
you know
gonna
or
twitch. I'm just gonna
not.
twitch my eye and just
Yeah.
smile and say, "Ooh, I don't know what that is."
What's that? What's that? So yeah,
But
like
I think seriously, I think what goes with that is like you said, your nature. It's
yeah,
because of the environment that you were placed in. And same here, like it took me a long time to realize people's like, you're controlling. And I was like, no, I'm not. But then it took me a long time to realize, and this is not an excuse, like, oh, I am controlling, but how much of that is from
it's a safety
how
mechanism.
I processed through my childhood, my young adulthood, my marriage when I was married, like how much of that was I had to. And so now it just became my default.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 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 Somebody said something to me the other day. I was having a conversation with a good friend, and I like bits and pieces of my childhood would come up, and we have been friends since I've lived here for 18 years, and I bring them up, and she's like, how come I never knew that? And I'm like,
Yeah.
and so she's cracking up. She goes, well, that I was talking about camping or something. She goes, oh, well, that will explain why you don't like outdoors so much. And I was like, I never told you. And so we were having a deep conversation, and she said, I realize now that a lot of your decision making that you've done through your parenting has been out of a straight sense of protection because you grew up in fear. And I was like, dang, when I was a child, I didn't think about that. But now I'm older, I'm like, oh yeah, it was a lot of things were fearful. Like it was normal, but when you grow up, you're like, no, you was just trying to make it work.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So how much of that, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, just even from that same, I didn't realize how angry I was as a person until I met Jamel. And I remember the first time I had like consciously thought about it. And it was my cousin Tequila. We were at Aunt Barbara house. Ooh, they about to be mad because now I don't know if it was Tequila or Santasha. They don't even like each other. But anyway, one of them.
One of your cousins.
One of the cousins. We're at Aunt Barbara's house. You know, we always do New Year's over there. And it was New Year's and everybody was playing cards and laughing. And they said, I don't know what this dude done did to you, but you just completely different. You nice, you this. And I was just like, I've always, like, the same person I've always been. And everybody facing the table was like,
Like, put their cards down.
you know? But I had never realized. And then, you know, being older and now being around mommy's friends, and they'll be like, you were always a very serious child. You were always, you know, and then it always goes back to how protective I was of mommy. And the dynamic of our relationship and how we spent so many years kind of in the reverse with me being the protector.
Right.
And I think, and I tell him that now, that I never really felt safe until I was in this relationship.
Wow.
And how much that safety allowed me to develop in other areas. Because when you are fighting for survival, there's no development. There's no room for development.
Right.
Like that, every thought is, how can I be okay?
Yeah.
So it wasn't until I was in a safe situation, whether that be psychologically safe, physically safe, until I had that, I wasn't able to develop into anything outside of
straight fight or flight.
Yeah. And I wasn't with the flight. So
for sure. Right. Yeah. No, I get that. And so that then lends itself to like another talk that kind of resonated with you from the previous season of what's wrong with who, and that whole mindset of developing empathy and understanding and compassion. When we think about that space, that time, and now being able to be provided with that relief of space that you didn't even know you were being given, helped you to develop that. And so being provided with that space, how has that shaped your development of, because like you said, you hadn't had a chance to develop it because you were in that fight mechanism. How has that shown up in your leadership and developing empathy for like those that you lead, like any feedback that you've been given aside from that, family gathering, like in your workplace or whatever, like how has that resonated with you as now having a more of an empathetic nature because of that?
So it's funny because Jamel and I were just talking about this at dinner last night, is you can tell typically, right? There's always exceptions. Whether or not someone has been through something by how much empathy they are able to give others, right? So when you've gone through something, you know that that can present in many different ways. When you have done the work on yourself and thought about ways that things shown up. So what that means in leadership is that when something happens, you don't just jump to, oh, what this punishment is going to be, or what you automatically think, dang, what might this person be going through? What might they be dealing with? And then it goes to how can I help before you ever get to the, at some point I do have to hold you accountable.
Right,
But
right, right. But you're
but let's
peeling back those layers.
yeah, let's talk about, let's get to the root cause. Let's talk about, what may have led up to this. The other part of that is that, again, when you're in that survival mode, sometimes that person doesn't even realize it.
Right.
They don't even know. And so until you start pulling back those layers, yes, you're trying to figure it out, but you may be helping them figure it out as well.
Yeah. I think that's, and I think the one thing that not the one thing, but one of the things that you said that was important in that, one, you said, to, when someone's been through something because of empathy. But the overarching, or the part that makes that for me the most impactful, is if they've had time to self-reflect and recognize. Because like you mentioned, if you are already in a situation and you're just in your fight mechanism mode, you are going through something. You haven't been through it yet. You're going, and you may have been through other things, but it doesn't lend itself to space for you to really show up with empathy, because you are at the, I just gotta fight. I just gotta fight. And I was reading a book, and he talked about, like, when you're going through stuff, there's two portions. There's one, like, when you already going through, you have to have like a mindset of the like an MMA fighter. Like, right now, I just gotta survive the punch. You can't survive and plan the attack. All you have to do is be able to survive the punch. So when you are able to get back to your corner and reflect, like you just said, now I plan the attack. I survived it. Now I plan the attack. And that's where that empathy starts to develop, but you have to do that. You can't always be trying to just survive the attack. You got to take some time to sit back and be like, all right, what did I learn from this? What did I gain from this? How can I plan for the attack so that I can develop a sense of empathy and I can realize where other people are coming from?
Yeah, and that's important as leaders. So I have on my board, it says heal, hear, help, right? As a leader, you have to heal first. There is nothing you can do for anybody if you're still fighting, if you're still in that healing. In that healing, you have to have done some reflection. You have to, because if you can't figure your junk out, you definitely can't help the next person. You probably can't even really hear them because you still trying to figure your own, your stuff out.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is definitely that first step, is that heal. And in all things we talk about, leadership a lot. And I don't care how smart you are. I don't care how many degrees you have. If you cannot look at yourself in the mirror, you will never be a good leader. You can say all the words you can do. If you cannot work on lead yourself.
Yeah.
You will never gain the trust of a team to be able to lead them.
No, I love that. You said heal, hear, help.
Yes.
That's going to transition to the kind of almost like the last 3 points, but it's going to be in like layered. I couldn't think of the word, like the
layers.
It's going to be layered, because
leadership is like an onion.
it's because it's funny that as I was kind of just looking through like some of the talks that you mentioned had resonated with you, it's crazy how this what we've talked about led up to this. So when you think about heal, hear, help, I'm going to mention the talks and then I want to dive into it. One of the talks were tell me what you need, and that was creating a safe space to be open and creating a space, being a person that can create a space that allows others to communicate what it is I want and what it is I need. But then also the person who is communicating the need, providing a space that you communicate the need so that you open up the space for the person that can answer it to either say, I'm not willing to do that, or, oh, I'm more than willing to do that. And that need is not even that compelling. I got more than that. So let me, do this. And side note, I have a event coming up at the end of this month, which speaks really to that, like communicating the need. And sometimes you have to be the person that just speaks to the need that you was looking for. But the second one was that's not what happened, our truths. And that one talked a lot about when my son and I, when Darius and I were having a conversation about some stuff from his childhood, his teenage years, and he interpreted totally different. I was like, oh, that's not what happened at all. But he developed a perception based on his reality. And I thought that because we were in close proximity, that he understood everything that was going on. And then the last one was, what do you have? And that's that growth mindset of, when you talk about the heal, hear, help, when you are able to do that, you're able to then sit back and say, you come from a victim mentality to a victor mentality, because then you can go from saying, I don't have this, I can't do that, I can't do this. Like, well, what do you have? You have time, you have, what, those types of things. So with those three aspects of creating a safe space, recognizing our truth, and the truth of others that were in that space with you, and then developing a growth mindset, how has that transitioned into your adulthood, like from going from your childhood and then developing into the woman that you are today?
Yeah. So for me, um, authenticity has always been important, right? And I'll use the kids in this one. So we always, of course, as everyone does, you want the best for your children. You want your children to see you and see things a certain way. I learned through some experience when I was younger with some adults in my life, like, man, I wish I had known that about you. I would have maybe looked at things differently. So I made a conscious decision. I never tried to hide my childhood from the kids. They know, oh, Nana had a drug problem and this and this. And, she got clean when mommy was 13. And like, we talk about those things with them because number one, I want them to know that it's real and it's a possibility and it's your genetics. And, it wasn't just Nana, it was my grandma. It was, you know what I mean? Like, I think those things are so important. You talk about creating space. Nothing creates space, especially with your children, like letting them see that you make mistakes too. That for us was so important. That is another lesson I learned from Jamel, because them growing up the way they did, you didn't have those conversations, and you were only putting like those positives, and that's all the public definitely saw. So for him, I remember having conversations where he would be like, if I did make a mistake, I just felt like such a failure because my mom was so perfect. And for me, we never wanted the kids to feel like that. So if you make a mistake, that's cool. Like, we're gonna talk about it, we're gonna fix it, we're gonna get through it. And you, again, right, from having them so young, they saw some of our mistakes anyway. Like, you
Whether
were
you said it
there.
or not, like, that was a mistake.
Yeah.
Was it?
Oops. So that same, understanding that from the kids' perspective helps me in my leadership at work for the same reasons, right? I make mistakes sometimes, that's fine. If they mess up on something, they can be like, a lot, Miss T, I jacked up, like this what happened. Like, okay, like, let's fix it. There's a lesson in that.
Right. A
I
lesson in
always
that.
say, we never lose, we either win or we learn. So, make mistakes are like, that's cool. And so that came, I believe, directly from the things I went through as a child, because I was able to grow and transition and see those mistakes don't determine,
Right.
it's not a linear equation to who you become.
Oh, that's
It's
good.
how you learn from it, how you bounce back from it is what determines who you become. So that's fine, we'll get through it.
That's good. I think that's good. And I'm hearing that right now for myself. I just think about, like, I had Rye when I was 19, and um our breakdown in communication when he became an adult was him feeling like, you never told me you weren't perfect, when he got older and realized that I made mistakes. And I didn't realize in my parenting and in my that I never communicated the mistakes. And so I was like, well, I never told you I was perfect. But in so many instances, I did in my actions, not in my words. And I was like, and so I think that that's powerful for anyone who's parenting now. And even if you are through teenage years or young years, even with your adult years, and just in leadership, period, and what you're doing, even for yourself, admit your mistakes to yourself, give yourself that grace to say, I screwed that up today. But what can I learn? Like you said, it's not a loss. It's either win or we learn.
But if you don't deal with it,
then
you are doing yourself a disservice.
Because it's going to be just a cyclical process. Like Alicia Keys says, yes, I would burn, but I called it a lesson learned. If mistakes overturned, but I called it a lesson learned. Like how you would never know what getting up is if you never fell down.
Correct.
Yeah. I think that
was my spot where I would counter your Alicia Keys reference with my Cardi B reference. What is fall down 9 times, get up 10.
No, that's what's up though. I mean, and all of that. I mean, if we look at just people who are successful, and I'm not saying that anybody that Alicia Keys is more successful than us because that's her journey, or Cardi B is more successful. But if we look at people's success record and their track of how they establish the success that they call in their life, they talk about their what some would call losses. It's like Michael Jordan says, I don't know what the exact number was. So if you're listening to this, don't try to quote me. But he shot 1,000 and then he, made one. It was like he didn't make his first shot. You have to, that's the only way you learn. Like when you tie your shoe, kids didn't get up tying their shoes. They struggled through it before they did it. So yeah. And I think we miss that sometimes when we get older and we start to do life for real. Then we forget that we have childhood stages in life. So although we may not be 2, we have 2-year-old stages in the things that we're developing. So when we were 2 and we were trying to walk, people gave us grace because we never did it before. But then we don't give ourselves grace when we're trying to walk at 2-year-old stage in this. Like, why can't I get this? Like, whoa.
No, for real. And not only do we not give ourselves grace, other people don't give us grace.
Yeah, that's true.
For me, that's not as important, but there's a lesson in that for those people, right? Is that, yes, I'm an adult, but there's still plenty of things I'm learning.
Yeah. No, that's good. I was thinking about that this weekend, and parenting. So funny story. So Tyler gets up in the morning, and before she got up, I'm like preparing the breakfast because I know what I'm going on past experience. I know what the mornings could be like. So I'm trying to just bypass. And I guess this is insanity because even then when I do it, it doesn't ever. So, but still, I'm trying. So I'm like, all right, let me get her breakfast sandwich together. I'm not going to heat it up because she don't like me to heat it up. She like to do it her own way. So I just get it out. I got the little strawberries, got her milk, everything good. So I'm waking her up in a nice, happy mood. Good morning, all the things and being nice. And I said, I got your breakfast together. And she gets up and she says, what am I having? I said, a breakfast sandwich. And she was like, I don't really want a breakfast sandwich today. I said, well, that's what we're having. Come on. And she's like, okay. She said, well, can I at least get peaches? I said, no, you got strawberries. And she's like, I don't really want strawberries. I said, well, that's what you're having. She's not, this time I'm losing patience. And she's like, I don't know about that. And she went, but when she said, can I at least? I was like, at least? I'm doing the most. You're not even doing the least. You didn't even say,
but you're doing the most of what you want to do, not what she wants.
Exactly. I'm like, but I'm over here doing the most and you doing the least. Your least is either good morning or thank you. You're not even doing the least. So we go on with the day in the morning, get everything situated. Now I drive her to school, get her out of school. I was filling up her water bottle at home. I get her to school and she gets out the car. She's like, where's my water bottle? And I was like, I filled it up. And she's like, and I'm thinking to myself, you still didn't do the least. I did the most. I filled it up. You didn't at least get it. So that made me start reflecting and thinking exactly what you said. Like, Every day you are childing and you are learning how to be a child every single day. You've never done this before. So give me the grace, because every day I am parenting and I never parented this day before.
Yeah.
So, and I'm trying to pull my wins from yesterday into today to be successful and leave my losses there and learn from them in today. But in the same aspect of me trying to win from my wins and eradicate my losses, you
Yeah.
are still learning to child. So you're going to throw a monkey wrench in the game, which is going to make a
100%.
whole new day of learning.
100%.
Oh, you want me to give you the grace as being a child, and give me the grace as being a parent parenting.
Yeah. That's hard to learn, though. I mean, it takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of time.
No, I agree.
Me and Jamaica always tell each other, we owe them grace. They don't owe us grace. Not yet, anyway.
Not yet.
Yeah.
But we teach them that, right?
Yeah.
And we teach them that through the way that we give them grace. We help
Yeah.
to teach them that same way.
And so I think identifying those moments is important in teaching them. So we use these words, right? Like, we want to teach our kids how to consider others. We want to teach them empathy. We want to teach them. But I think something that we miss as parents sometimes is identifying those moments and what that really means. So when they do have one of those highlight, like, oh, that was beautiful how you considered my feelings right there. Like, thank you for that.
Yeah.
So they can say, oh, that's what that means.
Because oftentimes I think we identify when it's not happened. Like, can you just be considerate?
Yeah.
I'm doing the most, you doing the least. Like, that's not when you hearing it. But when you say things like, when they come and say, Mom, are you okay? Your face looks like, yes, and I appreciate you having some empathy for it,
It's funny too when you do that, because then they just they're gonna keep with that same example every time. So Mikey had this when we had a conversation with Mikey when he was in his early teen, like 11, 12, 13, and it was always, how kids are, can I have this going on, I have that going on. And we would always say, you ain't even say hi first, how you doing, nothing. So then it used to be really robotic. Hi, how are you today? You okay? Okay, good. Listen, this it was like, I guess kind of we getting there. I don't know.
They take things concrete. I saw a video where it was like they told the boy to give eye contact when he giving his speech, and he was like, and they was like, move your eyes around a little bit. He would say something, he would look up. Like, move your eyes around a little bit. What you doing?
They're gonna do exactly what you identified. So yeah,
and then it just starts to build more. After they do it, it starts to build more and become more natural. Think about when they first started writing, everything was blocky and right at the line and right to the line, and then they started to get a little bit more fluid with it once it became more natural. So yeah, through everything that we talked about today, this has been. I learned a lot. I've gotten a lot that even as an adult mom and a grandma, grandmother, and a grandma, an abuela, I've learned a lot, and that I'm definitely going to pull into my 9-year-old for this is a blog right here, right? But what would be like some overarching things, like the message takeaways that you think you would want people who hear this to kind of take away from this conversation?
Be who you are. Like, authenticity is important. There's lessons in all of it, but you're the only one who can gain those lessons. Right? You have to heal before you can help. Introspection is very important to leadership in any aspect, whether it's parenting, whether it's leading yourself, whether it's, at work. You have to be able to look at yourself and say, what could I have done differently? Right? We can't control anybody else's actions. But in that situation, if everything else is constant, what could I have done differently to improve that outcome?
That's good.
I think those are the big ones. Give each other grace. You never know what someone else is dealing with.
Sure.
Yeah.
I love that. I want to say this publicly, and I know I've said it to you and maybe not recently, but I am so proud of the woman that you are continuing to become. and how you just lead your family with your with Mel, how you lead yourself. It was hit or miss when we was young. Like, whoa, but no, I'm just joking. No, how you lead your babies, all the things that you're doing at work and in your education. I'm so proud of you that you were able to pull some things from your childhood and just from your life and be able to shape it and focus into what you want it to be for your success, for you and your family. And so I'm super duper proud of you, and I'm so excited just to continue to see you grow and develop in your and just in your life. Look, I'm so proud of you.
That's super dope. Thank you. And on that same note, I'm so appreciative of, the example that you were. I wouldn't have said it as a teenager, but but I did. I learned a lot from you. I learned that it was possible to do something different
Mm, thank you.
and how important that was for me to not repeat what, you know, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was super duper important to me. So thank you.
That's awesome. So in the spirit of just support, because that's my plight and my goal with the organization is being able to provide space and identify areas of support that that individual leader needs to show up well and continue to show up well for their lasting success. What are some things that listeners could do to support you, whether it's a follow, whether if you have a blog that you're redoing or a book or whatever you may have going on, what are some things that listeners can do to support you in your lasting success as a leader?
That's an awesome question. Thank you. So really right now, not a whole lot. I am participating in a lot of other people's movements right now. That is what kind of fills my cup. Of course, working on my PhD work, I will be beginning my dissertation work in the next couple of months. So there will definitely be some opportunities to, participate in surveys and things like that. And I'll probably push a lot of that through LinkedIn. I'll probably push some through you as well. Um, Outside of that, 911 right now, we are fighting in a lot of states to gain recognition as public safety workers. In a lot of states, we are still looked at as a clerical role, which then disqualifies us from a lot of the emergency responder and public safety benefits like mental health
Mm,
benefits and a lot of those things. So if there was anything that I would say your listeners could do was to, keep an eye out for 911 Saves Act. Um, some states have different names around that. But just look at those things, reach out to your legislators, let them know that, you are in support of your local 911 departments being looked at as public safety.
departments is public safety and LinkedIn. Since you'll be pushing some things out on there, go ahead and shout out your LinkedIn so people can follow you.
Yeah, just Tierra Whitus.
Okay.
Yeah.
All of that information will be in the comments for you to be able to support. And I do thank you all for listening. And I thank you so much for giving of your time. And this has truly been an experience. And so I thank you.
Thank you.